What's up, sports fans? Ryan here with the DFS 5-pack. Hope your Thursday's off to just an awesome start. Let's talk through the showdown. Big game tonight in a way. This is a big game for the Cowboys. Obviously, the Saints come in as massive favorites. Does mean a little something to the Saints, though. Want to hold on to that number one seed. Either way, I'm thinking it gives us the possibility of being a decent game. Maybe we can hope at least. It's always better when it's a little bit more exciting like that. So let's check this bad boy out. All right, guys. Again, if you're new to the station, my name is Ryan. My business partner, Matt, is out for the day. He'll be back with us tomorrow. In the meantime, guys, if you want more DFS videos, press that red button that says subscribe. And as discussed this morning on the basketball video, it does mean a lot to us when you guys are nice enough to give the video a thumbs up. It does help spread us around YouTube. Again, that's how we pay our bills and everything that goes along with it. So from the bottom of our hearts, we really do appreciate it. So for everybody that hits the thumbs up button, it means a lot to us. Thank you very much. Moving along, guys, if you want the full breakdown, for NBA and NFL, baseball and things like that, just go sign up to be a member. I mean, you can get a full lifetime subscription for $350. And while that seems like a decent chunk of change, that covers you every month, every day, every year going forward, all three sports, baseball, basketball, and football. You get the private Facebook group, you get all the private shows and everything that goes along with it. Come join the family for that one-time payment or a monthly payment of $30, and let's go conquer this whole DFS thing. All right, guys. So it's an interesting slate in the perspective that the Saints always give us the problem. Now that you got Mark Ingram in the fold, for example, Michael Thomas is an elite number one wide receiver. They just got so many different routes to go. Cowboys, on the other hand, they got three real big hitters over there, and Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper, and Ezekiel Elliott. I look at Dak as somebody I have a lot of interest in tonight. So the Saints rank number 3 against running backs. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't score points against them, especially with Zeke being a lot more involved in the passing game lately. But they are really good against the run. They're also pretty good against number 1 wide receivers because they got a good number 1 cornerback, and because the Cowboys are so heavy towards their number 1 wide receiver, they're going to make things hard on him. I'm not saying Cooper or Zeke won't have big nights. I'm just saying it's not going to be simplistic or simple for them. Dak, on the other hand, I have pretty good faith that he'll give us some solid numbers tonight. He does add in the ability to scramble, which we'll get to in a little bit. He's continued to play better and better as the season progressed. I know there was definitely some talk of him, maybe not being the quarterback of the future for the Dallas Cowboys, but since the addition of Amari Cooper, he's played better and better and better. It's amazing how having a good wide receiver can help you right there, right? Kind of crazy, huh? He's got rushing touchdowns in 3 straight games. And I think he's got like a 50-50 shot to make it number 4 tonight. And the reason being, again, the Saints are incredibly stout against the run. So I see it as a distinct possibility when they're down there, inside the 5-yard line, faking the handoff to Zeke, running it in from there, straight up quarterback sneak, scrambling on some other kind of play like we saw last week. I like Dak as a safe, solid source of points tonight. I think the price tag is more than fair. The Saints have not been good at stopping opposing quarterbacks from putting up points, which is partly because they are very weak against secondary wide receivers, but also because teams have to throw against them because the Saints will score points. That's just who they are. Next up, Cole Beasley. So again, this offense is really heavy. They got a great running back in Ezekiel Elliott, and I think we're finding out that Amari Cooper is still pretty good, and then a lot of his downfall was more because of the Raiders and Derek Carr, it looked like. But we know what the Saints' biggest weakness is. They are really stout against the run, and they are pretty good against number 1 wide receivers. They are, on the other hand, really poor against secondary wide receivers. And also, anytime there's a slot wide receiver that's out there, they do not do a good job against that. So I do think that we do have the possibility of a solid Cole Beasley night. Now, is this like a must play or something like that? No. I mean, it's Cole Beasley. I mean, just look through the game log. This is not a guy that, he had the one really big game that was a little bit uncharacteristic of who he is. So I don't think of him as a must play. But if you're sitting around 4K and you need a guy who could give you a stat line like 5 for 50 and potentially even a touchdown, I do think that there is some potential upside for Cole Beasley tonight if you're specifically looking at what the Saints don't do well. Now, is Beasley, is this an exciting play? No. I'm not going to go all Jim Halpert and get really pumped up and start yelling Beasley because that's just not who he is. But I do think at 4K, there is potential upside to be had here. All right, next up. I don't know if y'all ever heard of this guy, but Drew Brees right now, for my money, is the best quarterback in football. And for a long time, it's been the Rodgers-Brady argument. You guys know I'm a Green Bay guy, so obviously Aaron Rodgers has been my answer. But this season, Brady's another year older. He's no spring chicken. Obviously, the Packers' struggles have been well documented. Drew Brees is playing the quarterback position as well as anybody in the league right now. I think most people would agree with that. I think he gets his first MVP this year, and I think it'll be really well deserved on his portion. We've been talking about Brees a lot lately on the show, and the thing that I like the most about Drew Brees tonight is it's a safe source of points from the New Orleans side of things. So New Orleans gives us the struggle of having two good running backs in Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. Both of these guys could be lead backs for probably half the teams out there. And you just really never know who it's going to be on a weekly basis. So they put you within that kind of guessing game. Michael Thomas is clearly their best receiver, no questions about it. But sometimes they just don't need to give him the ball that much. You saw it last week. And it's just a byproduct of Drew Brees being so good at spreading it around. Traquan Smith, we've seen the big game. We know that the young rookie's got some game and what he's capable of. Again, though, picking skill position players from the Saints is tough. The Cowboys aren't one of those teams either with like a glaring weakness that it's always this one way that they're gotten. They reek pretty similar against quarterbacks and running backs and wide receivers. So it is a bit of a guessing game. On the other side of things, though, we know what Drew Brees does. We know that he's fully capable of games like last week, where even though the yardage total wasn't great, he tossed 4 touchdowns to 4 relatively random players. And I'm not saying that's how it breaks down again this week, but we can say with pretty good confidence, Brees probably tosses at least 2 touchdowns. Why? Because he tosses at least 2 touchdowns every single week. That's just who Drew Brees is. So I am not as worried about this being a Thursday night game and the Saints struggling because they played a week ago. They've actually had time to prep for this game. When teams go Sunday to Thursday with travel, it's a tough spot to be. Not as tough for this team, who's also – they're just good. They're beating people down. I heard this morning they've covered the spread some nonsensical number of times in a row. Give me some Drew Brees as the safest play on New Orleans, and it's very possible Thomas or Kamara or Ingram could have more points, but we know Drew Brees will give us a nice point total. Not no, but you can say it with pretty good confidence. Speaking of random guys catching touchdowns last week, the second-year pro, Dan Arnold, out of UW-Platteville, baby, representing Wisconsin. Let's take a look at what's happened the past 3 games. Now, we all know that Ben Watson is no spring chicken. Dude's been around balling for a real long time. But there seems to be a subtle changing of the guard. Now, this doesn't mean it keeps up this way or anything like that, but over the past 3 games, Arnold has 11 targets, 8 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown, whereas Ben Watson has 2 catches on 4 targets, and Watson's more expensive. I'll take Dan Arnold at 1K less. Now, again, this is not a guy I'm looking at. It's like, you've got to get Dan Arnold in your lineup. He's definitely catching a touchdown tonight. Hells to the no. What I'm looking for here is I want as many good players as I can. And, if we're talking Dak and Brees, who we've already mentioned, and then I want Thomas, Zeke, Ingram, Kamara. I can't start everyone, but I want as many as I can get into my lineup. And by paying down to a guy like Dan Arnold, you can win your cash games with Arnold giving you a big fat 0. Done it myself 5 times this year probably, where I've had a guy like this, sub 2K, give me 3 points or less, but you still win easily because you get the upper echelon talent. That's all that this is really about. Drew Brees can toss touchdowns. We know that. He can throw them to randoms. We saw it last week as a perfect example. We also know that the Cowboys ranked 22nd against tight end from a fantasy perspective and had a lot of issues lately. Albeit against good competition, but they've had a lot of issues keeping them out of the end zone. I believe they've given up something close to 400 yards and 4 touchdowns against tight ends over the last 4 weeks. Again, there was some really good competition in there, so it's not saying that Dan Arnold is not Zach Ertz, but what do you need out of Dan Arnold here in order for him to be a value play? 2 catches for 28 yards? You live with that. One catch, 1 yard, 1 touchdown. That's a good day for you. And even if he gives you a big fat 0, which is completely plausible, if it allows you to get the right upper echelon guys, it is very possible to still win your cash games. So that's what I'm looking at so far today. Best of luck tonight, guys. Hopefully this game is exciting. No guarantee it will be. Obviously, the New Orleans Saints have been world beaters lately, so we will see what happens. But let's go out and get it tonight, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a little bit.